This is Chuck Trice, and this is Investment Tuesday. And today we're going to talk about the red paperclip. Now, probably you've seen this YouTube video about Kyle that bought a house using a red paperclip. So if you are in the real estate business as an owner, an investor, or a broker, you're probably always interested in a deal. Now, we as brokers are always interested in marketing and financing and finding ways to help our client for their sake and because that's what they hired us for, and for our own for-profit business. Now, this YouTube show is about the red paperclip, and I think this is a must for every investor or owner to watch because it's so out-of-the-box thinking. A person named Kyle, as I said, traded a paperclip for a house. Now, he had to go through many steps to get there. And he says in his video clip that he got lots of emails that said, this is the worst deal ever. You'll never make it happen. Nobody will ever want your stuff. And so I'm sure that kind of weighed on him some, but he kept going and he kept trying to find that one person that would take what he had so that he could go up in value. So to me, this is the best example ever of investing in real estate, and owners and brokers ought to understand this concept fully. Now, this concept fits about every transaction we make in life. If you think about it, we trade and barter for many things every day, and cash just happens to be our bartering tool. And so in this segment of Investment Tuesday, I'm going to focus most on the brokers and the clients. Now, the brokers and the client, their main goal is to sell the property. Now, it seems obvious on the surface, the reason is to sell the property is to get the cash and to go buy something else. And we realize that cash, or cash to a new loan, is a standard way of doing business for most owners and most real estate brokers. And in this economy, which is really good for lower end houses, most brokers don't go past that standard in helping their client. Go to the bank, get a loan, couple that with your down payment, and you can buy a house. So today's show is about the red paperclip. You know, when you keep it in that context that Kyle was doing, it worked very well. And the only thing we're doing different nowadays in the exchanger groups that I belong to is that our properties have more zeros behind them. $50,000 piece of land, $200,000 house. But the concept is so founded and so good that anybody can use it. Now, a good friend of mine, Cliff Strand, who's a real estate exchanger, says cash is just a commodity. It's to be sold and traded. And you can understand that because we trade cash for a house. We trade cash for a car. We trade for food and clothes and for everyday things we need. So the red paperclip concept is part of my everyday real estate business. You know, I will try to train you and explain to you that, yes, you probably would take other things for your property. You just haven't thought that way. And here's the concept. If you got a $300,000 house, and let's say you got $200,000 in equity, and somebody's got a $50,000 lot, you're going to tell me that you would turn that transaction down if they gave you $250,000 cash and you took their $50,000 lot. I think that's just almost a bad idea. You don't need to worry about that lot because that lot is going to retain that equity and you're going to keep that lot. You may keep it a week or a day or a month or 10 years and you may build on it, but that equity is not going away. And so all these concepts can be transferred to real estate, and every part of real estate can be traded or bartered. I have a book that calls 300 Ways to Buy, Sell, and Trade Real Estate. That's a wonderful book because it just gives you ideas on what people have done in the past, what they can do, and where they will go and how they will do it. Now, if you consider this, people have all kinds of assets that they can use to trade. Now, think out of the box a little bit. Can you imagine trading a motorhome for a house? Or how about trading the motorhome for a down payment on a house or a building? Can you imagine trading your house for cash and a promissory note? Well, the way I said it kind of a little bit throws you off, but that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking some cash or hoping somebody brings cash and they go get a promissory note from a bank or a lender and they give that to you for your house. So just try this. Ask yourself or your client what assets they have. Now, we call that real estate counseling when you ask your clients questions. And I'll tell you from experience, you will be very surprised at what clients have. You'll be very surprised to find out what they really want and what they will accept and where they will go. Now, they might tell you, I just want a 3-bedroom house and I don't want to do much. I just want a 3-bedroom house with a double-car garage on a small lot. Now, you can run yourself ragged showing them 3-bedroom houses on a small lot. And that may be good in this cash market. But if you've got a house that's, say, having a little bit of a problem trading or selling, you might approach them because there's a lot of people that have other assets that they can't go get a loan until they get rid of that asset. So clients can trade, they can add cash, they can add notes, they can add land, they can add motorhomes and boats. In fact, you just never know what people have. Many years ago in Durango, Colorado, and she had a house that was completely paid for, had it for years, but she had never owned a brand new car. So I went down to the dealership and I talked to the dealer who was a friend of mine, and he took her house and gave her cash and she got a brand new car. So translate that to real estate. And I have another friend, and we do this all the time, and it's called a cowboy auction at our meetings that I go to in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, we have 4 meetings a year with the National Council of Exchangers. And in those meetings, we have what is called the cowboy auction. And a friend of mine, he traded a bulldozer that he's got for 2 lots, 2 buildable lots down in Texas. Now, you wouldn't think they would do that because not only he had to deliver the bulldozer, but now he's got 2 lots down in Texas. So what do you think his motivation was? Well, his motivation was that he had a bulldozer that he was no longer using and it was just sitting there. And the owner in Texas had 2 lots that he had never even seen them. So he was not going to go down to Texas to look at these lots. And he would never build on them. So he would trade those lots for this bulldozer. And just so happens that the guy that owned the lots, his grandfather, was looking for a bulldozer and was just tickled, excuse me, that he would wind up with a bulldozer. So these are some of the things that you can do when you're dealing in equity marketing. And equity marketing is taking assets that people have and using those assets as a down payment or a vehicle to go up into bigger properties, more valuable properties, or something that they can actually use. And so if you have assets that are sitting there doing nothing, you need to be looking at how to get that equity out and move on down the road. And it's really a fun process to know that you might have 20,000 or 50,000 in equity sitting in an asset that you're not using. And so there are 2 things that most clients seem to have, and almost all of us have this in common, and that's if we own a building or a house, we have debt and equity. You know, obviously we have to address the debt on almost every piece of property, and we do that. but the equity belongs to the client or the owner, and the client can be as creative as he or she wants to be. You can discount the equity, which is lowering the price. You can trade the equity into something that you don't have to deal with right now. The equity is going to stay there as long as that property is there. So there are numerous ways to handle the debt. And a lot of times I just suggest that the client take their debt with them to the next property. You might be saying, well, how does that work? Usually some buyer comes along and they go to the bank and they get the money and they pay off the loan. They give it to you so you can pay off the loan. You do that at closing. So, but what if you're trading your house for another house and your house has debt, let's say $30,000. So in the new house, you go and get a loan for $30,000 or $40,000, whatever you can get with the value of that property, and you pay off the loan on the old house. So essentially you're moving the debt from the previous property to the new property. And hence, going up in value really helps because you have more equity. You can get more on the appraised value. And the concept of the red paperclip is bigger and better. If you watch that video, you see that he went from a paperclip to a pen that was shaped like a small animal, and that was bigger and better. And he took that pen and he traded that up and he kept going. He even went up to a generator and he said, what am I going to do with this generator? And sure enough, somebody come along that really wanted that generator. And so he traded that generator for a camp stove or a cook stove. Maybe it was the other way around, but he just kept trading up and up and up. He even traded something for a recording contract. And you wouldn't think, how in the world is somebody going to use a recording contract? But he did. He traded that and he kept moving up until he got a house. Real interesting video, and you just go to YouTube and type in the red paperclip. Now, bigger and better. That's the total concept of the red paperclip. Sometimes what I didn't see in the video is that if you had a paperclip and you wanted something that cost $1 and they said, oh, I don't think your paperclip is worth more than 25 cents, you could add 75 cents in cash. Or maybe you could add another piece of another item that you might have to equal whatever the value that they thought they had. But the red paper concept is really a good concept for people to know and understand. In fact, the IRS even uses this concept of the red paperclip. I think probably the IRS concept was before the red paperclip. But if you're going to do a tax deferred exchange, you can go equal to or up in value and mortgage, and you can have a tax deferred exchange. And so if you look at that concept and you look at the red paperclip concept, it's the same. You're taking assets that you have and you're going up in value to get what you want. So that's what we do. We go even or up in value. You can go down in value. And that's even a concept of the IRS for tax deferred exchanges. So what we want to do, and I carry that a little further than the red paperclip concept, is we want to balance the values or the equities. And you can balance equities with cash or notes or other assets, labor, and even promises. And so balancing the equities is just not a hard concept at all. Let's say you got a paperclip that's worth 10 cents and you got a pen that's worth $1. Then you've got 90 cents worth of equity that's there that you have to make up in some form or fashion. So you could give them cash, you could give them a promissory note, you could give them 5 paper clips to equal the value of the pen. And so the concept is not a hard concept. It's just bartering and trading and using assets that you have. But one of the problems I see in the real estate business is we are so accustomed to people just being able to go down to the bank and get a loan and come up with 3% or 20% equity. And the standard today, so to help a lot of young people get homes, or don't have to be young people, but just help people get homes, is you can get into a home for 3% down payment. That means that you have 97% debt. And you can trade that, but you have to deal with the debt no matter what, because the bank gave you the money on the debt and they want that money back, and they want it back plus interest. So it's debt and equity is not a hard concept, but you do have to deal with the debt and you deal with the equity. And I think that's a fun and fascinating process, and I really enjoy it. Now, I'm part of the National Council of Exchangers, and we have 4 meetings a year. And there's probably 100 to 130 brokers attend these meetings. And we take properties down to these meetings, and we try to work in our client's best interest, and we trade these properties. You never know. You might have a client that wants to go from Colorado to Texas, or Colorado to Kansas, or even go overseas. And you might have somebody that you meeting the meeting that has property in Texas or Kansas, and you can make a trade. And then all it comes down to is you agreeing on the equity, you agree on the price, and then you balance the equities so that each party gets what they want. As they say in the Red Paperclip video, it's a matter of win-win for both parties. And I really like that process. The process to me is just much better than going down the street and saying, oh, I like that house, let's go try to buy that. And so you get to know your client, you get to know both sides of the transaction, and you ask questions and you try to structure the best deal. So I'm going to end this broadcast and try to clean it up some and upload it to YouTube. So thanks for watching, and this is Chuck Trice with Investment Tuesday. Thank you.